Welcome to the Adabas-Natural Security Assessment conference call. My name is Paulette, and I will be your operator for today's call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question-and-answer session. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I will now turn the call over to Becky Albin. Ms. Albin, you may begin.
Thank you, Paulette. Hi, everyone. I've noticed we have people from all over the world attending, so welcome. So good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is in your local time zone. I'm Becky Albin from Software AG here in Reston, Virginia, and I'm going to talk briefly today about securing Adabas and natural environments and a security assessment that we are offering to our Adabas and natural customers. And like I said, I am limited on time, so I'm going to kind of go through this briefly. If you have questions, you can feel free to enter them through the computer, or I believe that the microphones will be opened, or your phone lines will be opened at the end of the session as well. So you can do it either way. Lori Axtell sitting here with me, and she'll be monitoring any questions that come through the web for me. So just some of the things I'm going to talk about briefly today will be the security assessment we're offering, some topics around securing Adabas, topics around securing natural, and then what I call the miscellaneous category, which is securing entire X network, entire connection, and some of the other Software AG products. As far as the Adabas and natural security assessment goes, we are actively doing those here in the U.S. And this came about over the last year or so because of a lot of inquiries we received from different customers here. Some of our customers are having issues with passing audits. You know, you're being audited based upon either your company's audit requirements or external audit requirements from a government agency or something like that. So then there have been some customers who have had security breaches, although I am glad to say, as far as I'm aware, these security breaches were not based, on the Adabas-Natural applications. It was some other type of technology that was breached. So, some of the things that we've talked to customers about, customers have come to us and said, here's some of the problems or some of the pain points I'm having, and the obvious thing is it's just security in general, and you do have to be aware that a good percentage of intrusions, and I would say actually the majority of intrusions, are actually not from external users, although you do have to be aware of that, but also your internal employees, people having access to data that they shouldn't have access to, and then how that data is accessed. Is it being accessed from a production environment or from a test environment, that kind of thing. So we're going to be talking about lots of different things here, and like I said, it is going to be a very busy session for us here. So I have to cut this down from how I normally would present this. But a lot of our customers do have some security in. Very few have what I would call total security, where you secure not only the applications but the data and the transportation of that data and other things as well. So what we want you to look at is a comprehensive security plan. So, you really do need to secure Adabas. I would say the vast majority of the customers out there, probably 75% of the customers or more, do not have any type of Adabas security in. All their security is built within the applications. And that's fine if you truly believe that no one can come in other than through those applications, and that's just simply not the case, okay? So what we want you to do is look at what we call multi-level security. So, you have natural secured or whatever your applications are written in, but most people it's natural. So, natural security is usually pretty good at most sites. We don't usually have a big problem with that. But what about, non-natural programs? And we'll talk about, some of the options for handling Adabas security, the data security itself. So, when we talk about this comprehensive security plan, you need to secure your applications for sure. So, natural security is just a part of that. You need to secure your data, and that data that we're primarily focusing on is database, but you do have to worry about SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, flat files, whatever you have. You really need to think about, where is that data and how many copies of that data you have and all that kind of stuff. So you really do need to think about the securing the data at rest. As I said, securing applications through natural security, securing your non-natural programs, whether it's SQL, COBOL, whatever it may be. We'll talk about those specifically in a minute. You want to look at securing services and messages, securing remote transmission of data. If that data is going from, like an Adabas-Natural in the mainframe or on a LUW server through, through whatever mechanisms you're using off to a mobile device or something like that, is it secured all along the way? Backups and a disaster recovery plan should always be included in a comprehensive security plan. Database backups, are you doing them on a regular enough basis? If you are, backing up daily or weekly or whatever your schedule is, is that sufficient? And then what are you doing with those backups? Are you storing, the copy locally and securely, and then is it going off-site as well to your DR site, whether that DR site is, one of your secondary sites or you're using somebody like SunGuard or IBM to host your DR. So you need to think about all that as part of your security plan. If you have security violations, you need to be aware of those immediately and be able to report on those and then to try to figure out where that hole is and close the hole so that you don't have any more breaches. And then you also need to consider non-production environments. Most people secure the heck out of their production applications, but as I said, they don't secure the data. But what about your test and development environments? Do you have copies of your production data and your production applications over there? And if you do, especially the data part, you need to either secure it or you need to mask that data, and we'll talk about that kind of stuff. Probably the biggest point I have to make with customers is, yeah, natural security, you have it and you have it done, well in most cases. But remember, it only secures natural. It doesn't secure your database data at rest, and it doesn't secure any data that's in flight. So you need to kind of start expanding around that. And then, as I've mentioned, and you'll see this same last bullet point here throughout the slide, there's all kinds of new rules and regulations and auditing requirements that are out there, whether it's HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, Basel, PCI for personal credit information. Within the U.S., a lot of our customers have to deal with IRS audits. There's like a million things out there that you might have to have an audit or follow specific rules for. So, that's one of the reasons why we offer this security assessment. The security assessment that we're offering here in the U.S., it's roughly half a day, and that goes down to the offer thing there. It can be actually, 5 or 6 hours depending upon the size of the environment and how many questions we have and you have and how detailed it gets. But the big thing is myself and a lot of the technical guys here at Software AG in the U.S., we've been working with several different customers over the last, I would say, 18 months or so with a lot of focus on security. So we have a lot of expertise dealing with different types of customers, both government, commercial, whatever it may be, financial. We've been working with a lot of different customers, and because we know Adabas-Natural and Entire X and stuff, very well, or at least I hope we do, we bring a lot of expertise to the table, and we can make some recommendations. And a lot of our recommendations actually don't include, they may include you needing to purchase additional products, but a lot of times you guys have products that you just don't even know about or use properly. So it's going to be looking at what you have, using those tools effectively, and then building onto that with the potential for some additional Adabas and natural products. When we come on site to do this security assessment, the participants, besides 1 or 2 Software AG people, would be from your side, you being the customer, is we need, the Adabas people, the natural people, And in particular, we need to talk to your security administrators, possibly your systems programmers, but definitely anybody around the Adabase and natural environments. We need them in the room. And like I said, it's anywhere from about 4 or 5 hours on average. When we're on site, what we'll do is we'll start doing an overview of your Adabas-Natural, Entire-X, whatever Software AG products you use. We'll start doing an overview of that. We'll try to capture a lot of this on the whiteboard so that we can, get a drawing and a big picture thing, and then we just start drilling down into there. So we look at what are all the security options we have available to us, on the mainframe. Are you using RACF, ACF2, or top secret? Off the mainframe, what are you using? Is it LDAP, Active Directory, Kerberos, secured FTP, just all kinds of things we'll start talking to you about and asking about, and figuring out when you use it and when you don't use it, and those types of scenarios. We'll also look not only at Software AG products you own that deal with Adabase and Natural, but there's Treehouse out there, there's CA, there's other products out there. So we'll want to know if you're taking advantage of any of those. So I mentioned SecureTree here. There's others out there. And then we would like to talk to you about any of the security and regulation auditing type of requirements that you have. And what is helpful to us is if we can talk to the people who deal with the auditors or implementing the regulations. Sometimes that's not actually the applications or the DBA people. So, if we have access to those, that helps us as well. And then, so we're on site, we do all this assessment, we get, a lot of artifacts from you, and then what we do is we come back to our offices, and, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll actually sit down and we'll draft out a report. And, the report is multiple pages, and it'll show what we saw so that you can verify that we are correct in our observations. And then it'll lay out a path of where we think your exposures are, your security holes are. So, recommendations for change. And a lot of times that's just, like I said, taking advantage of features that you may or may not have known were available to you. While we're talking about the security assessment, as part of this campaign that we created, myself and Brian Johnson from Eaton Corporation up in the Pittsburgh area, we wrote a white paper, and it's available on our website. If you just go to softwareag.com, click on products, click on Adabase, you'll see a link there for it. And you can just download the security white paper. A lot of you guys have already received it because either myself or one of the technical guys here at Software AG or your account rep hopefully emailed the white paper to you. If you don't have it, I would suggest you read it because it's kind of a unique white paper for us because it wasn't written only by me. A lot of it was done by Brian Johnson, a customer, to kind of say, these are the things that he's seen within his organization and from talking to other organizations, what they've seen as far as security considerations. So it's fairly detailed paper. It's not overly technical. When I wrote it, and Brian and I wrote it, there was a lot more technical stuff in it that actually was pulled out because they thought it was too down deep into the weeds type of stuff. So, excuse me, I have to take a drink of water. But just go ahead and download it if you haven't. And then I just want to make a plug for Innovation World in San Francisco this fall, and the reason being is that there's two things. One is on the very first day, October 8th, Jim Poole's going to be doing a half-day Adabase training seminar. And matter of fact, we've been exchanging emails and stuff over the past couple of days on exactly what his topics are going to be. So we've been, it's going to be about best practices, 24/7, performance and tuning, some of the features that are included with Adabase like caching and multi-fetch, how to take advantage of these things. And then the second half of the day will be how to take natural applications and really modernize those things to mobile devices, to the web, just all kinds of stuff. So that training day is included if you are coming to the conference. So if you get a regular Innovation World Pass, you get to come to this free training day. And really why I wanted to highlight this is we have Dave Kelly from the state of South Carolina, who will be presenting on, I would say, a vast majority of what I'm going to be talking about today. Dave is also going to be presenting on how they've implemented this at the state of South Carolina. I've worked with the state of South Carolina a lot over the past 6 to 8 months on implementing a lot of the security features we're going to talk about. So Dave is actually going to share his experiences with the various agencies within the state of South Carolina on how they've implemented our recommendations. And those other topics that are listed here, these are just some of the other speakers that we have, at Innovation World. So, take a look at them, and again, really, we'd like to see you there, okay? And there's 2 tentative ones there, so if for some reason these don't work out, I'll be reaching out to some of you customers to present to Innovation World. And you should think about it, because you present at Innovation World, we not only give you a free conference pass, but we pay for your hotel and we pay for part or all of your airfare, depending upon how much it is, okay? So let's get kind of talking about security. So as I said earlier, and this is kind of a repeat, you need to secure both for external breaches of security. We're always reading about security breaches coming from overseas and banks getting hacked or retail customers getting hacked, or you name it, everybody's getting hacked these days. You do have to worry about external security breaches, but if you go out and you go to Gartner, the analyst company, or Forrester, another analyst company, any of those analysts out there, they have tons and tons of papers on how, yeah, that's a problem, but a good percentage, and most of the time it's actually the vast majority, the higher percentage is actually intrusions from internal employees who are getting access to data they have no business getting access to. I don't know if you guys remember, a few years ago, the State Department in the U.S., there was a big flack because some of the employees there at the State Department were monitoring the passport activity of celebrities, and then they were selling that information to the tabloid papers. So, like when Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were showing up in Africa or wherever, or going on vacation to some island that you and I would never ever be able to afford to go to, the paparazzi were trailing them because they knew where they were going based upon their passport activity that was being leaked inappropriately by the State Department people. That was not an Adabas-Natural application, let me just tell you. But anyway, so, you need to think about, security, internal and external. As I said again, the vast majority of my customers, Adabas customers, do not have Adabas secured. And I really cannot emphasize enough that that's a big, 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 big problem. Because remember, natural security only secures natural. It doesn't secure direct calls, SQL, or anything else that may be lurking out there. And you guys go, oh yeah, but we don't have anybody in those direct calls. Well, believe me, you can Google how to code a direct call program that could read everything out there, delete everything you have, or actually change values. And if you don't have any data security, it's not going to be caught, okay? And then there's the thing again about all the new rules, regulations, requirements, and auditing so that you may or may not have to go through. So as I've said, you've got to start looking at multi-level security. And application security is probably the biggest piece, but it's just one of the many pieces. So you really do want to look at, who has access to the code? And do they have access to it only in a test development environment? Do they have access to it in a production environment? Who can move code in and out of production? Read in the white paper. There's a really interesting story about an Adabas-Natural shop. It wasn't in the U.S., but if you read the paper, you'll find out about it. And it was actually an internal employee was moving programs in and out of production unknown to anybody else and skimming money. And they actually skimmed millions of dollars before they were caught. So, because they were only skimming fractions of a penny, but if you do that enough times, it's a lot of money. So, you really want to look at not only who's using the code, from an application use, the end users, but you want to look at who can modify the code, where can they modify it, who moves it in and out, who authorizes all the changes, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk a little more detail about that as we go along through here. For the data, I've kind of mentioned this again and again and again, but I feel that, you know, just telling you once, you know, isn't, you know, good enough. You have to have it. If you're like me, you forget it as soon as you say it or read it. So, you know, drill it in, drill it in, drill it in. And I just saw a thing come up, said they couldn't find my white paper. I'll make sure that for everybody attending this, that we send you a link to the white paper if we don't do it before then. And then, you know, so we've got data at rest, we've got data in flight, and that's data that's going from Adabase not only to Natural, but from Natural out or any other application out to other places. And it can also include people who are replicating. If you're using our event replicator product or any of the other replication tools out there, you know, is that environment being secured? Not only in the replication environment, but, you know, like if we're replicating massive amounts of production data off to SQL Server or Oracle, is that properly secured, you know? So you really need to look at a lot of different things. So I'm not going to cover everything on this picture in a lot of detail, but I just wanted to highlight that if you look, you'll see kind of at the bottom left-hand corner, there's two categories. One is called security, one's called monitoring, and in the bottom right-hand corner, there's one called data protection. Those are the products that we're going to focus on here, and we focus on in security assessments, those types of scenarios. So we're going to look at security, we're going to look at monitoring and reporting, and we're going to look at your data protection, backing up, changing data, all that kind of stuff. So moving on through here. Let me just first of all start with Ada-SCR. Ada-SCR is part of Adabase. It doesn't cost you anything. Now, is this the end-all, be-all of securing Adabase? No, far from it. But it's at least a first step, and it's something you should look at. And Ada-SCR has been around forever. I mean, I've been with the company for 26 years now, I think. Yeah, 26. And, you know, SCR was around then, and I know at my previous job it was around even then and we used it. So it's been around for over 30 years, and I don't know exactly when Ada-SCR first popped onto the scene with Adabase, but it's been around a long time, and there's still a good number of customers using it. I am totally surprised as I run around the country and even sometimes around the world doing health checks and security assessments, how many people still use the old Ada-SCR utility. It's included with Adabase. It allows you to protect databases, files, and the really nice thing is get all the way down to the field and to the value level. And some of the customers who use payroll tend to use field and value level because you don't want just anybody being able to see how much money a particular person makes. So maybe only managers can see, you know, the employee's payroll record about their salary. Very few people should have access to a Social Security number, so maybe that's off limits to everybody but HR type of thing. So that's what Ada-SCR does. It allows you to drill not only to the file level, but all the way down into the field and to the value level. Just kind of a high level, I'm not going to go into this in a lot of detail, but basically what you do is you assign a password and you assign it a permission level. 0 basically means there is no security. 14 means it's very tight, and that's the only, only people who have a password that has a 14 level can do this particular function. And you can secure reads and updates separately, and updates would be adds, updates, and deletes. So I may give, somebody, like Lori sitting here in the room with me, I may give Lori read capability to a file, but I may not give her any update capability at all. Or I could say she can only update these particular fields on a particular file. So, that's the types of things I can do. The passwords are stored in the Adabase security file, not in an external security product, on the mainframe or wherever. There is an exception to that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And that's when you use Ada-SAF with Ada-SCR and only with RACF. Then those Ada-SCR passwords can be stored in RACF and controlled and maintained through there and applied appropriately based upon the user ID. But without being on the mainframe, ZOS, Ada-SAF with Ada-SCR, what you have to do is you have to pass that password, the Ada-SCR password, in addition to the control block. So it either has to be in the application or in natural security somehow, or you have to write a user exit 1 off of Adabase that inserts the appropriate password based upon the user ID. And who needs to figure out how to write a user exit 1? Most likely an assembler. and then do all that maintenance. So there's easier and better ways to do it. The next thing I want to talk about, and again, just because I'm limited on time, I didn't spend much more time on SCR. Next thing I want to talk about is encryption. And encryption has been around forever as well, and it's also included as part of Adabase. It's included as part of the compress utility, the AdaCMP utility. So Dave Kelly will be talking about this at Innovation World, because State of South Carolina has now implemented, or is in the process. Some agencies have already done it. Others are in the process of doing it now. They've already implemented encryption. So what you have to do is you have to unload, decompress your files, and then recompress, giving the encryption, the encryption key, and then you reload it. It is done at the file level, and you can decide. It's entirely up to you. Do you want to have one encryption key, for the same encryption key for all the files? I don't recommend that. Or do you want to have a separate encryption key for each file? So it's up to you guys to do that. Anytime the file is accessed, you have, whether you're reading or adding, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, you have to supply the encryption key. So when you're storing records, updating records, deleting records, reading records, you have to pass that encryption key. Okay? The encryption key is passed via additions for the control block. Again, you're going to write a user exit to do that, or how are you going to handle that? And this goes back to the same thing I talked about with Ada-SCR. If you use Ada-SAF on the mainframe, so your ZOS running Ada-SAF, and you've got RACF, that encryption key, and this is what South Carolina's doing, they're storing that encryption key in RACF. And it's actually saying, okay, based upon the user, then, this is the encryption key I'm going to implement. Encryption keys, unless you have Ada-SAF and storing it in RACF, they're not stored. We Software AG don't know what your encryption key is. You don't want us to know, right? So don't lose it. If you lose it, you're in big trouble. The last caveat here is it encrypts data only. I would have considered that a problem, except for if you do forward index compression, and here in the U.S., it's very few shops that don't use forward index compression. I've probably seen one or two in the last 5 years. If you use forward index compression, how we do forward index compression is never the whole value type of thing. So they're hard to figure out anyway, so they're kind of quasi-encrypted anyway. So I'm not too worried about that. And not all your data fields are indexed anyway. So, whether or not they would actually be sensitive fields, I don't know. That would be up to you. But with forward index compression, even if they are, the values are not stored in their entirety, so I don't really see that as a big issue. I will tell you that internally we're talking about enhancing encryption, so I don't have any of the details on that yet, but there is the possibility that all of this encryption stuff could change. Now I want to talk to you about Ada-SAF, because I've mentioned that twice, because there is a really nice interface between Ada-SAF and both encryption and Ada-SCR if you're using RACF, and only if you're using RACF. But Ada-SAF by itself, SAF is a standard IBM interface that we, Software AG, IBM, CA, everybody in the world follows as far as mainframe security. Okay, and I am concentrating primarily on Adabase on the mainframe because that's where most of my customers are. There is currently, and I want to emphasize currently, no Ada-SAF product off of the mainframe for Adabase running on Linux, Unix, Windows. We are working on that. Okay, that is an ongoing project now, so we're working on it. Don't have any really good details I can share or a delivery date, but just know we're working on it, and it will be in the near future. Okay, so SAF, ZOS, it's a central repository. It's a standard. It's been accepted for years and years and years by governments, by auditors, you name it. Everybody recognizes the SAF repositories. On the mainframe, we're talking about the three big ones: RACF, ACF2, and Top Secret. We support all of those with Ada-SAF. Okay, that means that you can secure databases and files. Databases of files through RACF, ACF2, or Top Secret. You just define them to those things, and I have another slide, I think, on this. And then it'll check. Oh, by the way, I wanted to, this triggered a thought. The disadvantage to using only SCR and not using ADA-SAF is passwords in ADA-SCR are not assigned to users, okay? When I said I created a password and I gave it to Lori, there's no way for me to know that that password was given to Lori through the ADA-SCR utility. I just know it's a password. And so when Adabase checks the ADA-SCR password, it just checks, is it valid or not? There's no way to tie it to a specific user. So if Lori shared her password with somebody else, I would never know that coming through unless I had that thing also tied into RACF, okay? So SCR by itself, it's some security, but there's no way to tie it to a specific user. So if somebody stole my password, Lori's password, whatever, or we gave it to somebody else, there's no way to know that that happened, okay? Unless you're using SCR in conjunction with RACF and ADA-SAF. Then there is. Okay, so like I said, I can define databases and files, databases and files, and I can give Lori the capability to come into a particular file and do a read of that file, but not update that file. Or I could say she can read and update. If I want to get all the way down to the field and or the value level, then I have to have ADA-SCR in conjunction with that, because SCR is the only one that gets down to the field and the value level. But remember, if it's RACF, ADA-SAF, and SCR, then those SCR passwords can be stored and maintained in RACF as well. And then that way I can tie those SCR passwords to a particular user, okay? So it's just mainframe registry, we're tracking users and what permissions they have. And again, this is the SCR thing about no tie back to a specific user. And there's also the maintenance issue. So if you put it all in RACF, under ACF, or under SAF, then we're cool. And not only can you secure with ADA-SAF, you know, your databases and your files, you can secure utilities. There's some shops out there where they allow certain applications people, not all of them, but certain ones, to run certain utilities, maybe ADA reps. And if they really trust their applications people, they may let them create new descriptors. But, you know, you got to kind of be careful with that because too many descriptors can kill you. So, you know, you can say, okay, you know, Lori's my programmer. I want her to run the ADA rep and the invert. Okay, she can do those, but she can't run any of the other utilities. Operator commands. You know, I want to restrict who can do certain operator commands. In particular, you want to secure who can do an ADA end. That means stop the database. There should be only maybe operators and the DBAs, you know, a handful of people who can do certain operator commands. Other operator commands like, you know, displaying activity or high water marks, who cares? You know, you can secure those, not secure those. But certain operator commands, absolutely. I can do cross-level checking if I have ADA-SAF. And ADA-SAF is really good about this, and I really do recommend that you implement this. But it does what we call cross-level checking, which is, okay, I can not only check, you know, is this person authorized to update, you know, database 100 that's a production database, but where are they actually coming from? Are they calling from a test in production over to my, you know, are they calling from a test environment to a database in a production environment? If so, disallow that, whether it's online or batch. We can detect that. So we can not only check where they're going, but where they came from. And so we can disallow anybody coming from a test region or a development region hitting a production environment. It's entirely up to you, but that can be established. You can also protect ET data, transactional data. Again, if it's SAF and RACF, we can do passwords and encryption codes. I think I saw flash by my screen here. I don't have the chat thing open just yet, but is that capability going to be available with ACF2 or top secret? And the answer is not to the best of my knowledge. Okay. As far as I know, it's currently only available with RACF, and I don't know of any plans to enhance it. And I know that there's actually some issues with us trying to implement that into an ACF2 or top secret environment. And I don't know if we're ever going to get around those or not. The nice thing is if you secure Adabase through ADA-SAF using RACF, ACF2, or top secret, you're not only securing against natural, you're securing any Adabase access, whether it's coming through direct calls, a COBOL direct call, a Fortran, a PL1, assembler, whatever direct calls, C, whatever it may be, Java, any direct call program, any SQL program, anything and everything. Nothing, and I want to emphasize this, nothing can bypass Adabas, nothing, okay? We can protect AOS, we can protect stored procedures. Only a handful of people I know use stored procedures, but those of you who do, you don't want new stored procedures being implemented that you don't know about, so you can do it that way. You can protect remote users, online users, batch users, SQL, and it works in a cluster or parallel services environment. Clustering is an IBM Parallel Sysplex. That's an optional product. Parallel services is optional for some customers outside of the U.S. environment. In the U.S., it's included for our customers. And I've already mentioned this, but I just wanted to put it out there again. If you use SCR or encryption, those passwords can be stored in RACF and controlled through Adabas. And this is what state of South Carolina is doing. And the reason I put this picture up here is, and this picture is actually slightly wrong. You see the Adabas nucleus and you see the SVC. Well, that Adabas box should actually be attached as part of the SVC. As of Adabas 7.4, I believe it was, the Adabas piece is actually embedded in the SVC. And used to, when you got it, the SVC and Adabas, you had to relink them. You had to link them together. You don't do that anymore. It's actually shipped, and it's actually controlled via license now. So it's actually part of the SVC. That's why nobody can bypass it. Everything has to go through an SVC, okay? And I didn't think I'd take this long, so I can speed up here. Another thing I want you guys to think about is data masking. And this is fairly new to the Software AG portfolio. It's done through a partner tool. And like I said, I'm running out of time, so I need to speed up. But data masking, why you want to use it is if you have copies of your production data in non-production environments, securing it in some cases is not good enough. What you really want to do, and a lot of people don't want to secure their non-production environments. Test and development is a lot less secured. And that's okay as long as you don't have any sensitive data there. But if you have my name, my address, my social security number, my phone number, and all that, my credit card number, bank account number, whatever, in a test environment, I have a problem with that. So what you really should look at doing is data masking. What it allows you to do is take sensitive data fields. You don't have to do the entire file. You pick fields. And remember, this is non-production because we're actually changing values. So what you do is you use this tool. There's no coding required. It maintains consistent data so that, my social security number, my bank account number, my name always gets changed to the same value time after time after time after time, and across multiple files. So it's fine. But what it allows you to do is change that sensitive data. So it would take my social security number or my credit card number, and it would, make it something that's real data, just not my credit card number. And the really cool thing about this product is it doesn't work just with Adabas. There are what we call adapters, which requires a license, so that means there's an additional cost for it. But not only does it do Adabas, but it does everything else listed here, Oracle, DB2, SQL Server. We are having quite a bit of success in the U.S. with people adopting and using data masking. I might try to get somebody to speak at Innovation World if we have a chance about this. We did have someone speaking last year, Penn State actually. So I've listed some of them here. We have sold this to a lot of customers here in the U.S. In particular, a lot of state governments have purchased this, and they're not purchasing just Adabas. They're purchasing SQL Server, Oracle, DB2. And so it works with all of those. And I just wanted to show you that there is no coding. What you do is you pick which table or file to us, which column or field, and then you choose a function, and then based upon that function, you may have to supply other things, but there's no coding done. And then you just run it through the data, and what it does, remember, you have to create a copy, and it kind of goes to the next page here. You create a copy of your production, and then you mask it. And I have it shown as a copy and a mask copy. It actually replaces the copy you made. So there's not two separate ones, not a copy and then a mask copy. It actually replaces that. I just wanted to kind of put it out there, because what it'll do is it does a read, it does a read with hold, does updates, and then ET. So it's reading through the data, and it's all written in Java. And so Java, SQL, so that's the masking engine and the masking tool over there on the right-hand side of the screen. and that's done with a partner. And so when you buy masking, you're also, if you don't already own it, you're going to get our SQL gateway. So we're going to also, include in the package a license for SQL gateway, and it translates the SQL Java into a direct call. Adabase processes it and masks the data. So it's basically just a Java app, reading and updating Adabase to change the sensitive data. And you can change 1 field or 10 fields, whatever you want to do. And there is consistency across files, and I do want to emphasize this. It's called cross-referencing. So in our case, I have the employees in the vehicles file, right? And if I want to mask the personnel ID because it's in common across both, or an address, it will mask it the exact same way across all the files, so that you have that consistency, so that your applications will continue to still work, okay? Another thing that I think everybody should think about is data archiving. And I only have one slide on that, and the way I put that in here is it's been out for a few years, but there was a new release this year that has what we call complex object support. That means basically the same thing I just talked about with masking. Is if I have data that's actually in multiple files, I can archive as a unit. So if I am archiving my record out of the employees and the vehicles and the miscellaneous files, based upon a common key, I can archive that as a set. And that's really an important feature. And yes, archiving does play into security, because you don't want to keep data that you don't need in production. In particular, I'll tell you, we've been working with a couple customers they have laws that say you don't keep data more than 7 years. Well, these customers have data that's 10, 20, 30 years old. Well, that exposes you to all kinds of legal ramifications. So what you want to do is you want to archive, and a part of the archive can be purging data. So they've actually run through and they've purged data. So that is part of security. So I just wanted to bring that up. Again, I have to speed up here a little bit. So those were the big ones for Adabase. Another one that kind of ties into Adabase here is network. If you're a big entire Net-Work customer, we have the capability, and have had for quite some time now, the capability to do encryption and decryption along the wire, as we call it, or on the fly. It's included as part of entire network. There is no additional license fee. I double-checked with headquarters on this, so that's available to you as well. The SSL support. So here's just another thing, just kind of some bullet points on this whole encryption for entire network. So it's encrypted, so take advantage of that. It doesn't cost you anything. And then I also have the last bullet point here, and I think I have another bullet point at the very end of the session. There's also included as part of network a SAF component, so that you can verify via user ID and password who's coming across entire network, Net-Work. You can verify who's coming across my network environment. So take advantage of that. That one doesn't cost you anything. Ada SAF is a chargeable item, by the way. Now on Natural, I actually highlighted the wrong box. Down at the bottom right-hand corner, yeah, I should have highlighted monitoring, but I also want to highlight the security add-ons. Natural Security. The vast majority of my customers use Natural Security. I would probably say 90, 95%. There's a few that use other products out there. The other one that's listed here is Natural SAF. Very few people use that one. Now, because most of you use Natural Security and probably use it pretty well, I won't talk about it a lot here. When we do our security assessment, we really talk about it a lot there. But, Natural Security controls Natural. Who has access to libraries, who can do, one thing we always ask is, do you have locked down, or do you have secured SysOBJH, which used to be known as sysmain? Do you have that secured? You don't want just anybody and everybody moving programs around. Who can move stuff in and out of production, that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure you have Natural Security properly set up. Again, that's part of our assessment. The issue with Natural Security is not only are you storing, libraries and programs, but you've got user IDs in there as well. So what some of our customers are just now starting to look at is NatSAF. NatSAF is an interface between Natural and RACF, ACF2, or Top Secret. It's a little bit different than the Adabase SAF in that what NatSAF does is it doesn't what it allows you to do is not have in natural security any user IDs. All you would have are groups. So all those user IDs would come out of natural security. The user IDs are only stored in RACF, ACF2, or top secret. And then that grouping is how you connect natural security to the users. Why this is an advantage and why some of my customers are now starting to look at this and use it is because without it, if somebody quits the company, you remove them out of, let's say, RACF. Well, that doesn't remove them out of natural security. You've got to go remove them out of there. Do you remember to do that always? My guess is no, not always. So what NatSaf does is, if I have all my user IDs stored in natural security, I delete, or not natural security, in RACF. When I delete them out of there, there's nothing to delete in RACF. They're automatically, because you don't have them there, they're removed from that group, so they're no longer, authorized within natural security. So you don't have to worry about somebody even changing roles. Let's say they change a role. I move from the application group to, I don't know, I become a security guard or something like that. I just decide I'm not going to program anymore. You just take them out of that group and you reassign them. They're now a user, not a programmer, so they get different capabilities, and you do all that through RACF, ACF2, or top secret. So it's really a good thing to look at. This is a chargeable item, NatSaf is. So this next slide here just lists a lot of the different features. I talked about most of these, but there's also some different ones. And I highlighted in red that the biggest advantage to this is that there's no user definitions in natural security anymore. So you don't have user IDs in a lot of places, user IDs that are in a central repository. It also allows for mixed case passwords if you want to do that. Reduces your natural security maintenance. You can have your ETIDs generated by NatSaf to ensure that they're always unique. Lots of different things here. I want to mention Predict application control. There's also other products out there on the market, Endeavor, N2O, things like that. But a lot of people don't have any of these products. They wrote their own using sysmain or sysobjh in Natural. But, there's only certain, you can't really do everything that way. And Predict or any of the other products, they really give you a lot more capabilities. And it's definitely recognized by auditors in that, you've got versioning control, you've got check-in, you've got check-out, you're controlling who can move in and out of production. So you really should look at Predict application, we call it PAC, or, some of the other products. Other things I want you to think about, and I am starting to wrap up here, EntireX. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time on it here. I do have a more in-depth PowerPoint, but we do address it during the security assessments. But EntireX has staff capabilities as well, interfacing with RACF, ACF2, and top secret. It's part of the product. It's not an add-on. If you're running EntireX not on the mainframe, you have local security, LDAP, Active Directory, Windows security. You have all kinds of options. And you really do need to secure EntireX, because think about it. If you're exposing, if you're doing RPC calls up to Natural and stuff, you really do want to know who's invoking those, right? So you want to secure EntireX as well as Natural as well as Database. There's still a good number of people out there using Entire Connection. And matter of fact, we did a thing with the United States House of Representatives. Yes, they are an Adabas-Natural shop. And they use Entire Connection, and we were on site earlier this year, and we did one of these assessments, and they don't run on the mainframe. They run on a Unix server. So we showed them how to implement SSH support, which is the non-mainframe version of SSL. So they're actually using that now after our recommendation. Entire Network has a SAF security component. Again, it's part of the product. You don't have to pay for it. If you're using our Adabase SQL Gateway, which is the Connects product, it interfaces just fine, because remember, if you're using Ada SAF, we don't particularly, all applications go through there, so there is a check there. In addition, Connects has its own parameter that will do a security check as well, called CNX no pre-authorized. You just 0 or 1. You have to double check on how that's set. And then AOS. You can secure it through Ada SAF, but there's also some security within AOS, within Natural Security for that. So with that, I am finished. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the chat. And Paulette, I think we can open up the lines here if you want.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. If you have an audio question, please press star then 1 on your touch-tone phone. If you wish to be removed from the queue, please press the pound sign or the hash key. There will be a delay before the first question is announced. If you are using a speakerphone, you may need to pick up the handset first before pressing the numbers. Once again, if you have an audio question, please press star then 1 on your touch-tone phone. Standing by for questions.
Yeah, and this is Becky again, and I checked the chat board. I had a couple questions. I've already answered all of those. What I'll do is, all of you should have registered, so Lori, you should have their email addresses, right?
Yep.
What I will do is I will have Lori email out to you guys all the link for the security white paper. I think that's going to be the easiest way instead of you guys seeing me trying to fumble around through the internet, because I'm not sure I actually have it bookmarked, but I'll get that link to Lori today. She'll email it to you. So if you have any questions, type them in on the chat or follow Paulette's instructions for asking a question. If not...
And we're showing no audio questions.
Okay, all right, so then I think we can wrap up. I just want to say thanks, everyone, for your attention. I'm glad you attended. If you guys would like a security assessment, that's probably an important thing. I didn't really tell you how to go about that. You can send me an email, that's fine. My email address is becky.albin@softwareag.com. Again, that's becky.albin@softwareag.com. Most of you guys know me anyway. Send me an email, and I'll get it to the appropriate, your account rep or your SE, and then we'll work with you on getting one scheduled. I do have a question that just came in. Is the 191 limit on file numbers per password in Ada-SCR removed? The answer is not yet. It will be in version 8.3, which is scheduled to ship next year. So yes, it will be next year, not currently, okay? And we've had that request for quite some time. I'm sorry it took us so long to get around to it, but it is done in Adabase 8.3. So yeah, so if you guys want a security assessment or a health check, which is a much bigger thing, it's just that the security assessment is basically a piece of the health check we pulled out and we expanded a little bit. But you can either do a full-blown health check, which is looking at your whole Adabase performance, natural performance, everything, or you can do just the security assessment. The health check takes about a day and a half. The security assessment, like I said, is about 4 or 5 hours. If there's no other questions coming through the chat board, I'm going to say have a good day, and I'll see you guys the next time. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may now disconnect.